Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the videos you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like, because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues, and any issues that related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting the subscribe button. And if you want to be a paying citizen of this nation, hit that join button for your options. I always treat my joining citizens better as a benevolent dictator. Today I want to continue on my series on the case against God's existence, where I'm going through the arguments for those who say there is no God. Now, there are two types of atheists. There's the agnostic atheist, such as myself, that says, I don't find any of the evidence for the existence of God compelling. In my case, once upon a time I did, but the more I looked at it, the less and less compelling it became. And then there are those who literally say there is no God and thus make a claim. And I am looking at the evidence for that claim, that there is no God, the absolute statement that there is no God at all, which is more of a Gnostic atheist, that they believe they know there is no God. Okay, so today we're looking at part 5, and the part 5 is the argument from non-belief or unbelief, depending on how you look at it. Now, the argument basically goes like this. You have an omnipotent God who's also omniscient, okay, who has an important evangelical message that needs to be delivered to every person, that every person's must believe in them or there's grave consequences, and this deity wants people to believe in him. Okay, so the practical problem, of course, is what the argument states, is not everybody believes. And it seems like an omnipotent, omniscient God who has this very important message that everybody needs to hear, that they need to believe in him, and yet people don't, is contradictory to the idea of omnipotence and omniscience. In other words, an all-knowing God would know what it would take to convince everybody and would have the power to convince everybody of their existence and why they should believe in them. Okay, part of the case for this, against this, is, for instance, the reliance on human agents. In the case of Christianity, for instance, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. This idea of using humans to spread the message. Jesus trained his apostles for this, go from town to town, don't take anything, things like that. And, if they accept you, rejoice. If they don't, shake the dust off your feet. It's this shaking the dust off your feet issue, because that may simply be that the human agents are incapable of delivering the message effectively. They are ignorant of all the elements of the message. They've only heard part of it. They may be less than motivated to reach certain peoples because of their own prejudices and bigotry, whereas God wouldn't have any of those limitations himself. The whole thing could be a big misunderstanding, making sure that the message is on point and clear and consistent, which in the case of Christianity, you can't even claim that within the Gospels, that the message is always consistent. But when you rely on human agents, how many major divisions of Christianity, and within those major divisions, how many minor divisions of Christianity are there, all claiming to, have the true gospel? So you have this mounds of misunderstandings of people, this people that just don't get it right from God's perspective. They don't have the power to go certain places are cut off from them. And the thing about, in the case of Christianity, for instance, you have a very important message, because if the message isn't delivered or received, it can have very grave consequences, either eternal fire or annihilation, which are both non-desirable ends for most people. And so you end up with this notion of a God who seems to be very incapable of getting this message across to everybody who needs to hear it. It becomes an issue for God in the sense that if he is omnipotent and he is, omniscient. He would know what it would take to convince everybody. He would certainly have the power to convince everybody. The message is very important because you're leading to damnation or whatever, and that changes the nature of the game. It changes the idea of, okay, well, if God thinks this message is so important, why doesn't he use his own power and his own knowledge to reach every person? It seems like if that was the case, then that's exactly what God would do. So therefore, such a God must not exist, because if he is truly motivated to reach everybody, he would use his power, he would use his knowledge to reach everyone. Evaluation. This is a very, very good argument, once again, against a very specific type of deity, in particular the omni idea of God, either omnipotence or omniscience, or the idea that God has a desire to reach everybody with the message. You could argue a lot of different ways with this. Now, in certain religions, you can't argue this way because it's very clear. For, say, instance, with Christianity, you have 1 Timothy 2:4, where it says very plainly that God desires all people to come to a knowledge of the truth. That apparently doesn't happen. So in the case of Christianity, you do have a God with a desire to reach everyone, okay? Yet at the same time, everybody isn't reached, okay? So either the Christian God is not omniscient or omnipotent in the classical sense of the word, that there are limits that either are self-placed or placed on really the nature of the universe on whether or not this can work. So what you have in this argument is the possibility that you could change the definitions or drop the omnis altogether. You could have a God with a desire to reach everybody, but neither the ability nor the knowledge to actually do it, or has genuinely chosen to give people a choice about it. The free will defense kind of comes in here, although it's kind of weak, because if God truly is omnipotent and omniscient, then he could reach everybody with what they would need to know. I think the counter argument at this point for those that say this proves the non-existence of God, even so, such a God would still be very powerful and very knowledgeable enough where they could stack the deck, so to speak, that no matter what the free will of people is, there'd be a very clear, consistent message. Everybody would receive this message, and everybody would be convinced in a way that they would find convincing. And so it is a pretty strong argument against the omni-gods, probably one of the stronger ones, in my opinion, because if this message does lead to eternal consequences, and God is both, the other issue is God's benevolence. If God is benevolent, then he would want everybody to be saved or whatever. But it depends really on the faith base of the religion now, doesn't it? So that doesn't really help there. Now, this doesn't do anything for any God system that's perhaps polytheistic. You could have gods where they don't necessarily have all the power. There's a conflict between the gods and goddesses about whatever. So this doesn't really hit them at all. It kind of goes right around them. There would be good rational reasons why everybody doesn't hear the message, because some people could be interfering. Some of the gods could be interfering with others of the gods that, so the message isn't heard by everybody. And so you could have that conflict nature. You'd also maybe have certain religions that don't really have an evangelical message with eternal consequences, so it doesn't really affect those gods at all. So against a very specific type of God, I think, I'm not sure about Islam or Judaism. Well, Judaism has never really been evangelical in that sense, because it's tied up with a single people group as well. But both Islam and Christianity, I think, would be very effective by this notion, especially if you have a benevolent God who's omnipotent and omniscient. I can change those definitions. I can reject them and say we just need to go according to what power God has and knowledge he has according to whatever holy books you're using. So you could get rid of that element. But if there is an eternal consequence for not receiving the message and accepting it, that part still remains. for those religions. So any religion that has that, I think this is the one that kind of hits it pretty hard. Does it prove such gods' non-existence? Yes, specifically, but I don't think it does a general disproof to anything. So we'll have to, deal with that as it comes. But as such, that's kind of the way it goes. I don't find this one as convincing. It's very specific, and I don't think it does the job of, truly and genuinely hitting God between the eyes and saying you don't exist. So that's kind of where I am at with this. This one's a little bit shorter today, but it's a little bit easier to deal with. We've dealt with these concepts before. So thanks once again for stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that. And thank you very much. Just remember to live your best life. You only get one go around, and then it's over. Don't waste your time on the trappings of religion and faith. Don't give away your time, your money, your opportunities to anything that is religion or faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And once again, thank you for stopping by, and I will catch you next time.